I've always had a fascination with the Great Pyramid over 4 decades. Here's a picture of me leading a tour earlier this year. So through contacts in Egypt, I wanted students in America to get a first-hand account of the Egyptian Revolution of 2011, where Hosni Mubarak, the dictator of 30 years, was being overthrown. And so Sharif from Egypt came to teach and tour in the U.S. So through an agreement with the State Department, here he is in an American classroom.
And then there was this Thursday, it was the third speech for Mubarak, and everybody thought that it was the end and he was going to say, I'm stepping down. But then he started his speech by, I am going to, I am going to, I am willing to, and he's talking about the future as if he's the president. Like, I'll make sure to punish everyone, I'll make sure to restore stability, I'll make sure to allow for democracy, and everybody was frustrated. And then he said, now I'll give more jurisdiction or more powers to my vice president. And it was like, that you appointed 2 weeks ago. So,
Okay, so Sharif told those students about how the revolution was in Egypt, and how did he know about how the revolution was? Well, let's look at this video with Sharif in action at Tahrir Square. You can see the Egyptian Museum in the background there. And here is Sharif outside the museum making history. Well, this revolution, for all the good that it brought, one thing it did was it ruined tourism. So the cab drivers, the cabin owners, the hostel owners, just their businesses went belly up. People were starving. So something had to be done. So was it safe to go back to Egypt? Well, Zahi Hawass took the courage to try and get a tour up in 2014. He had been thrown out through the revolution as the Minister of Antiquities, and I knew if I wanted to get some of these sites, like between the paws of the Sphinx, where I am right here, I needed to go with him. So I signed up with Zahi. It was a risk, but we made the front page of the Cairo New York Times 2 times that week. You know, tourism is back. We had 90 people from different walks of life. So Zahi said to me, to Larry, let the pyramids guide you. And so I founded the American Institute for Pyramid Research and have been doing research in Giza and going there and studying and just loving every minute of it, really. So he asked me to sit next to him at the big banquet at the end of our time together. I must say, though, that my relationship with Zahi is very stormy and volatile, and, you know, enough said about that, perhaps. So I took a team on the autumnal equinox.
It's a significant moment on the Giza Plateau.
Studied the coffer in the King's Chamber there. So come tour with me sometime in Egypt. So the Great Pyramid embodies the constants pi, phi, and many others. A miniature of Earth. It's supremely oriented. The Grand Gallery is the most amazing corbel architecture in the world. The trial passages right near the Great Pyramid here, I'm teaching about them on that tour. They're amazing. It's incredible when you see it. So the Great Pyramid is the only pyramid in Egypt with upper passageways. It's the only pyramid with air shafts. It's the only one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world still standing, and it's the largest pyramid in the world, the pinnacle of pyramid building technology in the 3rd and 4th dynasties. Now there's 2 sides that interpret especially the age and the building of the Great Pyramid. There's Dr. Hawass and Dr. Mark Lehner are probably the 2 most visible faces of Egyptology, and they, of course, say the Egyptians built these pyramids in the 4th dynasty. That side is to be juxtaposed with the alternative researchers, Robert Paval, Graham Hancock, and others, who say that the pyramids were built by either a technologically advanced civilization, now gone, or by aliens. Those are basically the 2 camps. Okay, so here's a blending of the 2 camps. You've got Dr. Zahi Hawass, and this is before the revolution. He was the Minister of Antiquities, and he invited these guys who had said that the cartouches in the relieving chambers above the King's Chamber were fakes. You know, this is John Anthony West, Robert Paval, and Graham Hancock, who were with Zahi. And so Hawass said, why don't you come on up? And he gave him a day up there to, you know, study those things. And all 3 of these men came away saying that the cartouches were real. Well, that's a story for another day. So there's the 2 sides. So Here's some things that various alternative researchers have said about the Great Pyramid. David Childress, a famous alternative researcher, wrote The Technology of the Gods. He talks about the tremendous numbers that appear in the Great Pyramid. We've talked about the pi and phi constant. Robert Grant, a current researcher, has found that the Vesica Pisces is in the coffer in the King's Chamber and the King's Chamber itself. There's an alpha and omega there. Here's a top view showing you've got the square root of 2, square root of 5, square root of 3 showing up in the coffer in the King's Chamber. Alan Green, an associate of Robert Grant's, has shown that the Vitruvian Man of Da Vinci foreknew the Great Pyramid, or foreknew things that others supposedly found later about the Great Pyramid, having to do with numbers. So there's the Great Pyramid and the Vitruvian Man. Okay, Michael Dennin, a physicist from University of California, Irvine, says that the Great Pyramid is the most perfectly oriented building in the world. Its 4 sides pointing almost directly to true north, south, east, and west. Incredible. And he even Dennin mentions that the little bit that it's off could be due to the precession of the equinoxes. Scott Crichton, an author I really like, don't really like his book, The Great Pyramid Hoax, but he talks about those cartouches that I showed the picture of near the beginning here. But Scott Crichton says that the Great Pyramid is located at the center of the world's landmass, and not just on the latitude and the longitude stripe, which most people who make this claim say, but he also shows that if you take the diagonals through the Great Pyramid, they also touch more land than any other set of diagonals from any other spot on Earth. So incredible. The Great Pyramid located at the center of the world's landmass. How does that happen? I watch David Wilcock on his YouTube channel a lot. He wrote The Ascension Mysteries. He says that the cubit, which was used in building the Great Pyramid, is the 1/25th million part of the polar radius, the polar diameter, of the Earth. Now, how could that be? How could there be a direct relationship between the measures in the Great Pyramid and planet Earth? Freddie Silva, who looks at the divine meaning in monuments all around the world, who wrote the Divine Blueprint, says, he points out what others have noticed, that the side of the Great Pyramid is 365.242 cubits long, and that's how many days there are in a tropical year. Unbelievable. Giorgio Tsoukalis, the publisher of Legendary Times, shows this incredible fact, that if you take the GPS coordinate for the Great Pyramid, its northern one, it's 29.97, almost 30 degrees north latitude, 29.9792458. That's, you just look on Google Earth, that's what it says. The speed of light, 299,792,458 meters per second. Unbelievable. The same number. How does that relationship happen? Well, for all these different amazing things that have been said about the Great Pyramid, here's what Giorgio says.
You can't just dismiss all of this as pure coincidence.
So there's the rub. You can't dismiss it as coincidence. Now, the Egyptologists, what did they say about all these incredible revelations that are in the Great Pyramid? Well, they usually don't acknowledge them. But when they do, it's usually with the word, if they acknowledge them at all, with coincidence. So the alternative researchers don't think it's coincidence. But here is now where you are going to have to make your decision. What's your conclusion? Because if it's not coincidence, then what is it? And that is a question we all need to look into. And this channel will certainly delve more deeper into that. Well, I'm getting ready to revamp my channel. I'm hoping I can get some new subscribers, some new watch hours. I try and look at things that others aren't looking at. I travel regularly to Giza. I presented a paper at the RC convention, the American Research Center in Egypt, about the trial passages. I've written a book called Enoch, which is about the Orion correlation theory extended, and currently studying some of the sacred geometry in the Giza Plateau, and the Vitruvian Man, drawn by Da Vinci, and some of the amazing things revealed there, and a handful of other things. So I hope, if you're interested, that you'll stay with me. Thanks for watching.